I really didn't understand coffee processing, right? Like, think about it. When you buy a coffee beans, you're like, ooh, I'm going to get this Ethiopian from Yirgacheffe and it's going to be a light roast and that's great. Like, but whether it was naturally processed or washed, I didn't know what to make of it. Driftaway. So that's a company that makes coffee beans based in Brooklyn, pretty hipster. But they did something that I just had to jump on. They've got 3 different coffee beans that were processed in different ways, all from the same mill in Nicaragua. Of course, like, it's not the same coffee bean, but it's as close as it can get to nearby farms with similar terroir and, so whatever flavors that should go into it kind of should be similar, but they're processed in 3 different ways. So that's what we're going to test today. We're going to do a little coffee cupping. I'm learning along this. But the whole point is to figure out what's the differences between these naturally processed, washed, and there's honey processing. I didn't even know honey processing existed. Whatever. We're going to figure this out. Okay, so what's coffee processing? Right? Basically, when you get a coffee cherry, which is like this red cherry, you kind of have to pull the beans out, dry them, and that's when you get the green beans. That's when you kind of ship them across the world. Then it comes to your roaster, they roast it, make it light, medium, dark roast, and that's when you get it. You either grind it, and then you make your coffee. So the whole process going from that cherry to a green bean, that's processing. But right now I have 3 ways. The first one is washed. So washed takes the cherry and you kind of wash the outside part out, called the mucilage, and you got the remaining beans, then you dry those beans out, and that becomes green beans. Cool, simple. Honey processing, I just learned about this, is actually somewhere between the 2. So you're removing the seeds from the cherry, but without water, and you then, just use those beans and dry them out. But apparently honey is because that remaining cherry part kind of gets this golden hue, so it's called honey. Whatever, man, I never named it. And then finally you have natural processing. So the whole point here is you take the cherry bean, you just dry the whole cherry bean out in a bed. Once it's dry, that outside part flakes off and you got the beans inside. So there's no water involved in a way, hence it's different. We're gonna coffee cup these 3 and see what's the difference between all of them. So you need a few things for coffee cupping. One is an electric kettle, so you can kind of start heating up your water. A coffee scale goes a long way, just being a little more accurate. And then you need these kind of glasses. Any glass can do. This one just kind of is the right level, so it's kind of easier to work with it, but any glass can do. And then you need spoons, like a cupping spoon. I don't know why this is rainbow colored. Like, what the hell is with rainbow colored coffee stuff? Like, ugh. And that's it. There's not much else you really need. So you're going to weigh out 12 grams of coffee, grind them into a medium coarse grind. And at that point, you can actually smell this. So I just learned that the smell when it's dry is called fragrance, but when the coffee is wet, it's called aroma. And then finally, when you taste it, that's called your flavor. Fancy. All right, so we're going to grind them and then pour some water. We're going to wait 4 minutes after that. All right, so while I'm waiting for 4 minutes, really, then I'll break the crust. But for now, I can smell the aroma. Okay, so it's been 4 minutes and now I need to break the crust. So I'm going to use my spoon, just push in a little bit and then go in like 3 circles. At that point, the crust will kind of fall down. I now need to wait 10 minutes before I can start slurping. Oh shit, I forgot. I need to remove those bubbles on the top because that's carbon dioxide. It's adding bitter flavors. I don't need it. So I'm going to use 2 spoons to scoop it out from the top. All right, it's 10 minutes later and now it's time to start slurping. So the point of slurping is you're really throwing the coffee into your mouth, like kind of hitting as many receptacles as possible. So that's what I learned. Kind of makes sense. But it's also taking in oxygen, so you are kind of smelling the flavors in your nose as well. Cool. And I'm going to take some notes here. And the results are in for all the 3 different coffees. Okay, so the washed one, I got a fragrance, an aroma of like earthiness, muddiness. The flavor was like a lot of nuttiness. Okay, interesting. Very light body. It wasn't like taking over my mouth. And I guess that's maybe a generalization of washed coffees as well. But the key thing to note is apparently washed brings out the most flavor of the origin of the coffee compared to other methods. The second was honey, and I got a very floral fragrance. Cool. And despite being called honey, which it should not, it doesn't really add honey flavors, but I did get an aroma of honey. Oh man, that's funny. But the flavor was a twangy papaya. I loved it. It kind of threw me off a little bit. Definitely more body than the washed, and kind of makes sense. It hangs around as a longer aftertaste. Again, a good generalization. The last is natural, and I got a lot of sweet honey fragrance out of it and a lot of fruitiness in my flavor, but definitely a lot more body and a lot more acidity in this one, which again is a good generalization. Natural process would be a little more body than normal, but you know, whatever. As a process, this has a lot of disadvantages. One, these aren't the same coffee beans. You can barely get a good comparison between 3 different processes. I get it, but it's probably the best that can happen. 2, it's me who's doing this comparison. I'm no expert in any way. And 3, I generally get this cupping wrong as well. So take it with a pinch of salt. But I really want to thank Driftaway for doing this. Like, this is some special edition coffee beans, whatever. But I really wanted to figure out what coffee processing means to almost the same beans. And this is probably the best way for me to experience it for myself. So thank you. All right. With that, I will see you all in the next one. Bye.